How long does it take to make a tabletop game? How fast can you go from an idea to something you can test? In this video, I'll show you how I went from zero game to an entire digital prototype in one day. When I sat down to make this game, I only had fragments of an idea. I knew I wanted to make a trivia game. I love trivia games.
This is Jeopardy!
But a lot of my friends don't like trivia games.
But I'm not gonna take this anymore!
So if my friends don't like trivia, I started wondering, can I make a trivia game for people who don't like trivia? Something more accessible, but still involving interesting facts and plays like a party game. Sounded like I had my idea for now that I could at least workshop. Alright, so we have our goal. Design a trivia game for people who don't like trivia. What do we need to get this done? We need some rules to provide structure so we can actually play it. 2, we need a player board where people can write down their answers and probably keep score. 3, we need trivia cards to have the answers on one side and the questions on the other. And then 4, we need a way to put it all together, which will probably be Tabletop Simulator. I fiddled around on my phone with some scratch ideas before landing on something I liked. At that point, I copied the rules into a new Word document in my Google Drive folder and got to work fleshing them out. Alright, so let's look at different trivia games for examples of what we could do here for mechanics. So there's Trivial Pursuit, which is the OG. Those questions are really broad, really difficult, and there's not a lot of information in the questions to help you kind of figure out the answer. There's other trivia games that let you wager on players or yourself. And I like that mechanic, but I felt like that would still be intimidating for players who aren't confident in their answers anyway. So I thought, what's easier than true or false questions? So that's what I went with. The base idea of the game is that the questions are all true or false. They would need to be hard enough to test people who enjoy trivia, but at the end of the day, a person still had a 50% chance of getting it right. And even if they didn't, they wouldn't have to feel embarrassed or look like a total moron. But just answering true or false questions the whole game, that seemed kind of boring. There had to be another twist. Then I wondered, what if you could pair with another player and take their answer? You would only get points if they got it right, but you'd be rewarded by picking people who knew certain facts. That seemed like a game that at least I would enjoy, and it was enough to get started with. Plus, I came up with the name Truth or Pair, which I thought was great and funny, but my brother thought was more or less stupid. Okay, another thing I forgot to mention here was crafting the game experience. So this is another thing you want to think about when you're doing game design. You don't just want to design theme or mechanics. You got to think about what is the experience that you're crafting for the players at the table. So in this case, the experience is going to be tension building as people answer questions, but they're not getting the answers to the questions. You get through all 10, and then you start revealing the cards, and that's really where you're going to get the joys, you're going to get the highs and the lows, the laughter, and the social interaction as those cards are revealed, and you figure out who you paired with and what the answers are going to be and what points you got. And that's really the experience I was going for here. I wasn't sure everything the game needed yet, so I jumped into Canva to make a quick drawing for a player board, where the players could write answers, keep track of score, etc. Canva is my go-to tool when I need quick assets for a game. I have another tool which I use for cards, which we'll show later. But Canva is great because it's vector-based, and you can change the text easily on a number of templates, and you can also export to print or to Tabletop Simulator very easily. I didn't really love any of the base templates. I ended up just kind of picking one to get the right size, basically deleted everything from it and started fresh. I thought a bunch of question marks, kind of a 90s theme background would be cool. So I'm pretty close to what I was thinking. So we're just going to grab one of those and make it our background. Alright, so here in Canva, I'm just trying to make something readable and something clear so that if we ever print it out and play with friends, that they know what they need to do on their player board. Probably got a little carried away with the font and curving the text, because really the idea is just to get something quick and dirty down that you can iterate with and play test. But regardless, I was eventually able to pull myself away and move on to the next step. Now we need some cards for our game. Instead of Canva, I typically use a tool called Dextrous for this. Dextrous allows you to create templates and reuse those templates and import from spreadsheets. It's really dynamic and powerful. So I'll show you how to use that, and it'll just be a quick overview. If you want a full tutorial, a full breakdown of how I use Dextrous and the entire workflow, make sure to leave a comment down below, and we'll make sure to get that out for you. First, in Dextrous, you have to choose a layout. I kind of peruse the existing layout options here, but I don't love any of them, so I go ahead and just pick one, and then I know I'm going to heavily modify it. In this case, I don't need to do anything fancy. I'm just going to start adding text, and I know that I want some different color for the different types of trivia cards and the different categories, so I'm just going to mess around with the boxes till I find something I like. Remember, when you're making a prototype, it doesn't need to be fancy. You want quick and dirty so you can iterate quickly. But I don't always follow my own advice. Sometimes I like to float my own boat and I get carried away a little bit. So don't be like me. Now you can see that I jump over into Google Drive and a spreadsheet here because I wanted to start generating some questions. Dextrous has the nice ability to be able to link spreadsheets to the cards so you can generate them on the fly. I started kind of thinking about how the questions would be structured, kind of what categories and columns I would need. If your column headers match exactly, Dextrous, when it maps to the spreadsheet, will be able to know exactly what columns you're referring to be able to pull the data from the Google Drive spreadsheet into the Dextrous table. Okay, so at this point, I am kind of thinking about what the categories are going to be for these decks. I was thinking maybe 50 card decks. You'd have a base set for the base game that would just be generic general science, general geography, general sports, and those would be the base 50 card decks, and there would probably be 5 of them. And then if you're only doing, 2 cards from each deck per playtest, I can get quite a lot of playtests in the base game. But then I was also thinking, from a marketing perspective, you could also have different decks that you would buy as expansions in the future, and those could be more specific and more tailored to your game group, and so that gives infinite replayability, for the future. What Dextrous allows you to do is that even if I pull in data from the same layout, I can go ahead and customize each row to actually change the colors on the fly. In this case, I'm going in here to change the background colors to purple instead of green because it's a different category. Category style, you can see is a column in there, and that's what's changing the background. And so you get these style columns, and then those style columns just get a little JSON information, and you can copy that down into any row that you want. So I could take those formats and I could plug them back into the spreadsheet. Go ahead and make my format column. It's not mandatory, but once you have it, the style can also be brought in dynamically so that I can change the color of the cards for each row. All right, so where are we now? If you've stuck around this long, congrats. You're a psycho just like I am. We went from basically nothing to rule set and idea. Then we went to Canva and we created the player board, and then we've gone to Dextrous and we created the trivia cards as well. Now we just need a way to pull it all together. All right, now that we have some cards, we're going to fire up Tabletop Simulator. I'll show you how I import my cards from Dextrous into Tabletop Simulator. We're going to go and we're going to add a custom board. And this custom board is going to be our player sheet that we made earlier in Canva. So I go ahead and find that. We're going to bring it in. Boom. We got a beautiful little player board. But that's just an example of how you can easily pull in your asset from Canva into Tabletop Simulator and use it for a prototype. All right, now let's add our cards. If I go to the Saved Objects folder, Saved objects you can access from outside Tabletop Simulator. I exported the cards from Dexterous into a JSON object and then plopped that save file, the export from Dexterous, into that saved objects folder. And boom, we got those cards from Dexterous right into the game. And it's super easy to iterate and pull those back in. You can copy and paste once they're in here if you want to make multiples of them. And at this point, we have a pretty good looking digital prototype. Now, obviously, you need to get people in here to play multiplayer, to test it out, to do play testing, but you actually have the assets now and everything. And at this point, I'm very happy with how much I got done in about the 3 hours that I worked on this straight. Well, there you have it. We went from an idea to a prototype in just a few minutes. In reality, it took me about 3 hours, and I was able to do it all in one sitting. Hopefully this shows you how you can apply this workflow to your own games to get something quickly to a testable prototype. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe so you can get more content like this in the future and more in-depth tutorials. Until then, make your own fun.